Morning traders, this is Christian Farmer, Certificate Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, August 4th, second trading day of the month, and a little bit of a different different move than what we saw towards the end of last week. Before I get into the price action, I just want to go over some of the things that you get if you are signed up for the watch list. Sorry, for the Substack that we put out every day. So to get there, that's ttgtrading.substack.com. That's where you can go and sign up for that. But here's, for example, the watch list. I put out two different notes over the weekend. One is for the video that I kind of talk about the bigger picture first, some of the things that are going on under the hood, which I'm going to get to. I thought that was very interesting. It was a tweet that I sent out yesterday about market breadth and the McClellan oscillator, which got to oversold levels. But in any event, we go over that, and then we go over what the indices are doing, a sector review, and then I go through open positions. That's in the video. The second post that you get from Substack is what my new watch list is for the week. The way that I kind of constructed the watch list this week is just to basically look at some of the things that I talked about on Friday, just high quality names that are dipping, strong earnings names that are dipping. And a couple of the names, I put out 5 different setups that I liked. I talked about CRDO, which I've liked dips in this smaller cap semiconductor, NVDA, which we've seen this before, into the 20-day moving average. That worked really well almost in here, and you got a nice bounce off of that again. So dips continue to get bought. KTOS is a drone name which had a nice day today. Again, another name that I felt is strong. Now, KTOS did not report earnings yet, but they will be reporting shortly. Our Rambus, which really like this kind of semiconductor slash like electrical component group, names like APH, which had a big day today. We added that name in the TTG trend portfolio on Friday. Also, TEL was a name that had really good earnings as well. There's the chart for that. And CLS. So those are my 5 setups. I took 2 of those today. Again, I can't take every single trade, obviously, but certainly those looked pretty good to me. Let me just share the right screen. I want to get into today's price action. So, please go ahead and check that out on our Substack page, and it's free to get the version of just what I send out, which encompasses like some of the bigger picture stuff. It's very cheap to sign up to see what our positions are and trade ideas. So for today, one heck of a rebound today. Again, I wanted to start with what I was talking about with the McClellan oscillator, both for New York Stock Exchange and for NASDAQ. I don't have that up in front of me, but you can go to my Twitter page, and I sent that out yesterday. I also speaking of the Substack, I posted that in the midday note as well. But that got to basically as oversold on the NASDAQ side as what we saw in April. Now, I had some people ask me, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. How can that be with the indices at close to all-time highs?" And I think you kind of have to go back to some of the things that we've been talking about over the last week and a half, and that the breadth has been not good at all. And it kind of reached a fever pitch on Friday, where it was the worst breadth. I think the up volume for the day was only about 30% for New York Stock Exchange. So these are some of the things that we look at under the hood, and you won't see this with the price action just looking at what SPY is doing or what Q is doing, right? So that's why we kind of get an overall barometer of what's going on with the market when we look at things that are going up and things that are going down, and volume associated with down movers and up movers. That really gives a sense, and I think that's why that the oscillator got to oversold levels. Now, we did not get as oversold with New York Stock Exchange stocks, but almost got to oversold. So I thought that was very telling. So we've also talked about seasonal factors where I think the first trading day of the month is like, I don't know what the exact figure is, down like 13 out of the last 28 trading the first of the month. Sorry, I'm messing this up, but something like down like 13 out of the last 25 August 1st, and it was down again. Um, so again, some of these seasonal factors can kind of help you play out like how you're being exposed to risk. That worked for me. Friday was not Friday. I was actually up for the majority, not for the majority of the day, but for a portion of the day. But regardless, it was a big down day, and I didn't have any drawdown whatsoever, just because I took the necessary steps, and then I was playing offense on Friday, which is kind of where I tend to want to be when you have a market dip. Right. Sometimes if you're caught off guard, caught on the wrong foot, caught on the back of your heels, sometimes you're playing defense when the market's down. Right. And I was doing a little bit of that. I had a couple positions that were in the red. And I think I took off one position on Friday. But for the most part, I was playing offense in the morning. And I said, hey, I want to get into Robinhood. I want to get back into Oracle. Right. And I took advantage of that, and that worked really well for me. So being able to play offense on these market dips, we know that even though August, yes, especially the first half of August is weaker seasonally. It's still what we've been seeing with this market since April is very shallow dips. And so far, that's what we have again. So let me get to a couple of the movers and we'll bring up some charts. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Please make sure that you read the full risk disclaimer there. Everything that I'm going through in these videos is for information purposes only. But really rebounded pretty decently was, well, first of all, the breadth, speaking of breadth, it was very strong today. So as I mentioned, last week was weak, especially Friday. The up volume was about 29-30%. Complete opposite today. The up volume today was about 81%. And I don't normally like to go after something that I talk a lot about when we have gap ups, which we had today. But I just saw that the breadth was so strong today that we could get a trending type day today. So again, these little things like this, indicators that kind of tell you again whether there's strength or weakness going on under the hood is very important in terms of how I position and how I trade this market. Growth names did very well today, up 1.9%. Value still did well today, up about 1%. But really interesting is to see that, yes, the small caps outperformed. They were the laggard last week. The micro caps were up 2.9%. It was as if they weren't even reacting to the move in rates on Friday and to the fact that the Fed might be coming in and cutting interest rates in September. When you look at Fed fund futures, they are now pricing in a 96% chance that they're going to cut interest rates in September after that jobs number. So IWM, it was just too much selling pressure on Monday. Also, markets don't like to bottom on a sorry. It was too much selling pressure on Friday, and markets don't like to bottom on a Friday. I think that had something to do with why the market was acting a little bit irrationally on Friday and not picking up what bonds were doing, not picking up what Fed fund futures were pricing in. Usually that's very good for small caps. And today you kind of got the reaction for that. The Qs were also up 1.8%. I'm not really sure how this happened because gold was only up today about 60 basis points, which is nothing. And meanwhile, gold miners were up 4.8% today. Also, silver miners were very strong today, up 3.7. Believe it or not, those were your best performing areas of the market. So I can question that all I want, but it is what it is. Didn't make sense to me. But if you were long those, you got rewarded today. The semiconductor is very strong today, up 2.2%. Clean energy and things like MP materials, which I also bought on Friday, did very well. Tech overall, very strong. Software was also up 2.2%. The medical devices that was helped by TMDX today, also some earnings releases did very well, and China was up. Over the markets were strong overnight. Hang Seng was up over one, I believe, about 1% last night. So the Chinese Internet ETF up 2.2%. Let's get over to some charts. So let me stop sharing here, and I'm going to get to. There we go. All right. All right, so Palantir is up after hours. Once again, we're seeing some names do really well on earnings, and some names not so much. When I look at here, I'm gonna reshare this just so that you could see. Stop screen share. Let me try this one more time. Window. Right. And when we look at the after hours movers, this has been the case. There's certainly names that are not beating earnings. You've got Hims down 9%. You got Odd, which is a smaller cap, like beauty type company, is down about 7, 8%. VRTX is down 13%. And I'll tell you, like, you have to be, I said this last week, be careful who you follow, right? Because if they're only going over the bad moves, right, you're completely missing out on what's happening on the good side of the market. So when you look at the names that are moving up this morning, after hours, you have BWXT, which is up 11%. Palantir should be up here someplace, but I don't see it for some reason unless it's come back in. But AXON is up again, not a huge move here, up about 4%. Here's Palantir up 5%, but then you have a number of other names too that are also moving up. ARDX is up 13%. By the way, so if we go back to just the regular market today, there was some interesting move. IDXX was up 27% today. Um, what else? I thought there was a couple other biotech type names. I mentioned TMDX was up, but they were not up on earnings, but they were up decently. So in any event, let's get to the let's get back to the charts, and I'll go over some names that from the weekend watch list. By the way, here is the. Let's see if I could try this one more time here. All right, there we go. So there is the weekend watch list. And again, what I tried to do here with this, and again, this had a very good day today. I just really try to go after some names that I thought would possibly see buy the dip. Even something like AEHR, which was a name that had strong earnings. And again, a lot of these names are coming from the strong earnings and gap list that I put together, which now has about 80 names in it. And I just look for things that could possibly are possibly ready for them to after they retrace. Like AEHR is a good example, and I'll go over that chart in just a second. But that's a good example of something that had a good earnings report and basically filled the earnings gap, right? And that's what the market, like a little bit of market weakness, does for us. Is that you could really find some setups that I think are looking pretty good, and that's how taking advantage of market dips and as I said, playing market offense rather than defense. So again, here's Palantir just to show you what this is doing after hours. It's a nice move, and they had good numbers that should take them back out to new highs. Certainly has been a very strong company. I'm just going to start with this, even though I didn't trade this company, but here's a good example. It's just a good example, right? Here was your gap up on earnings. It came all the way back in and filled this gap. And then look at it bounce right back up, and that's right around the 20-day moving average as well. I'm going to get to just what we're looking at in SPY, which broke the 20-day moving average on Friday. Look at it snap right back. I would say that we're not out of the woods yet. When just like I said, one day is not a trend. I say that when the market's down and sometimes when it's up. I would watch to see if we could break through that top of the value area for the month. That's right around 631.73. And that's right around, we kind of closed right around the 5-day moving average too. All right, here's what this looks like on the 1-hour chart as well. Notice that we did break into we started the value area for the week below value and we broke into this. So the bullish, you could see bullish 80% roll as long as we stay above 629.04. So it gave you a little bit of a resistance level in front of us and a support level for the major indices. I'm going to do the same thing here in the Qs. The Qs also, I believe, just got into that value area right at the end of the day. So you can see it says potential bullish. I think that will trigger the bullish 80% rule. But again, look at where we came from, right? And we basically filled the gap for a lot of these indices. So again, Q's not quite as strong, still has some more to go to get out of its value, or just barely, I think, filled that gap. So now the heavy lifting is going to have to come in here, and that's 566.42. So again, I am not abandoning the fact that the beginning of August has weak seasonality, and like we could do a number of things here. We could kind of stall and back and fill a little bit. I think that would be, that would make sense as well. IWM also filled the gap, but still below the value area for the month. So again, different looking picture there in the small caps. And I think if you go through, I'm going to start with with breaking down some individual names. Robinhood, I bought the dip on Monday, not Monday, on Friday morning, right into this 94 level. So this was a nice 2-day trade, but it's still going to have to cut through this downtrend line and break out of the value area. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if it stalls here. I am long the name. I did take a couple targets. I think I took 3 targets in this, and now I'm riding the last quarter of the trade for a possible breakout. If it doesn't get there, that's okay. I may back and fill, but I've already locked in a good amount of profits, and we'll see if it can break higher. Right. I don't have a crystal ball, and I would like to see it get above 107.40. Right. We know that technicals, right, telling us where there's resistance and support. Some people on social media, they like to think that technicals are predictive. They're not, right? We're basically just looking at a roadmap of where there's support, levels of interest, and where there's resistance, right? So it's an uncertain situation, and that's why what we do is when we did something right and when we got a really good entry and support held, right, then we're taking profits on the way up, and that reduces your uncertainty in the trade. Oracle was a trade that I got involved in Friday. Why did I get involved in Oracle? Because dips have gotten bought all along the way since the company changed personalities. How did it change their personalities? Because it had a huge, strong earnings report back in June, and since then, every little dip has been bought. Right, and that's the change in personality. And again, that could run on until their next earnings report, and then they have to, give new information about what's going on. But for now, that's why I stay in some of these names, is because the dips keep getting bought, and I bought the dip on Friday. That's Oracle. MP Materials, which I was not able to get a target in on Friday. This was another trade that I started on Friday. As I said, I was playing offense, and I was able to take a target here. I would still watch the 65.30 level. Notice it did not break through that. All right, so that's a couple trades from Friday. What else did I want to go over in terms of existing trades? Reddit was a trade that I believe I talked about on Friday. Look at the nice continuation in this. My ultimate target is 211. I just went out, and saw it come in a little bit from the highs on Friday, and I thought with that it had a really good earnings report. Short interest, 17% of the float, and I thought that this name can run. And nice continuation, up another 7% today. I did get rid of one position today. This was a trade that worked for me very well. In terms of the second time that I tried it, and but it kind of stalled out here. And again, just like going through some other names, when names sell off like this, odds are there's a chance that they are going to kind of get hung up here and back and fill a little bit. So that's okay for now for Howmet Aerospace, and I'll watch to see if that kind of continues with backing and filling, and if it kind of checks back to the 50-day moving average to the bottom of value area, I'll try buying the dip again. Right, that would be the plan there. I want to just go over a few other trades. As I mentioned, NVIDIA was a setup that I was looking in for today. Again, didn't get back to the highs today, but one really nice, progress day, up 3.6%. And once again, the dip gets bought. Microsoft is another name that I'm watching. It's holding the 5-day moving average. But and I thought, like, if you wanted to buy the dip, I think this was a good place to do it, right? Extended here, and even though this isn't a dip, like it's coming into like the 20 or the 50-day moving average just from the highs. So I consider that a little bit of a backing and filling into the 5-day moving average. I mentioned CRDO had a heck of a day. Again, this team has been acting so well since, again, going back to its earnings move. Every since that big earnings gap up, every dip has been bought along the way, and that's another dip being bought. CLS, I also tried this trade today. I was not able to get a target. It's still up 3.4%, but I didn't own this name coming into today, so I had to buy a little bit of this. This is extended, so I left room. If it does come back in and back and fill, I can go ahead and add to that. All right. One other name too that I was going to bring up is CAH. Right? I know this is not popular, but I've seen a lot of people look at the healthcare sector and they're saying, "Hey, I want to buy the dip." Again, if I'm going to buy the dip, it's going to be something that's in an uptrend and it's something that's strong, right? We've heard this case. Not whenever, but I see a lot of people still trying to buy the dip in UNH. I don't really get it. They did not have a good earnings reaction, and that's a no touch for me, even though it took out a downside VPOC. I mean, this is a logical place for it to bounce, but you have to think about what happens after it bounces. Are you ready to sell it after it moves up $3 or $4? Right? Because now this isn't a downtrend and you've trapped all the people who have been buying the dip in here. Right? I would much rather go after something like this, right? Where this is a name that has had strong earnings. This was back in here. And again, it's in a very weak sector, but took out a downside VPOC here and closed on the highs today. Right now, this name is going to report earnings, so I won't be holding it for that long. Maybe a week. If it continues, my target would be up here, right? And that's what I would be looking for in CAH. Let me see if there's anything else from the watch list that I wanted to go over. Mentioned CRDO. AEHR, which was the best name I think on my watch list today. KTOS, which I mentioned, was one of my favorite setups coming into today. Very nice move off the 20-day moving average. AVAV was also a name that I was watching. Did okay today, up 3%. Still kind of sideways at that. Also, a firm caught my eye today. Really nice move here out of the consolidation. And watch that VPOC up there, which is about another 1.3%. So I'm going to stop there. I feel like I can go through another 15 or 20 charts, considering how the price action in the growth names were today. But I would just say, I don't know if we're going to see this market move right back higher to where we were. If it doesn't, that's okay, because I'm kind of a little bit prepared for that, being that the first half of August is weak seasonally. If it wants to buck if the market wants to buck the trend, right, then I've got some exposure there too, right? I've just been kind of being a little bit more conservative, making sure that I'm taking targets and so forth. But I will tell you, very nice start to the month. I think I played Friday correct. I was positioned correctly for that, understanding that seasonality for the first of the month, and yeah, and a nice strong day today. Guys, have a great night.